Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Shiloh Church. Hey, I'm here in front of the Louisville Courthouse this morning, and in front of the original pump house and the original Louisville jail here this morning, because that's what I want to talk to you about, is Paul and Job and adversity and jail and how we should handle that. But first, let me just say to you, happy birthday, Shiloh Church. 143 years old, and that's a blessing. That is a blessing. Let's look around for a minute. This red brick building on the site of the City Hall front steps is the original jail and the original pump house for Louisville City. Inside this building is a tiny little metal box that was the original jail cell for many people who broke the law back in the early days of Louisville, Texas. My question for you is, how would you like to be placed in that cell for years? Not just months, but years. That's the question I want to pose to you this morning as we think about adversity through the eyes of Job and through the eyes of Paul. Let's take a look. It took nothing more than steel bands and then riveted them together to make this box and crude door. Imagine spending a few weeks in this enclosure. This building sits here as a reminder to us that there is punishment. But sometimes punishment is given to us when we don't deserve it. How do we react when we receive punishment that we don't deserve? Okay, we can't even begin to talk about adversity unless we begin this study, if you will, with Job. So turn with me, if you would, to Job chapter 1, verse 1. And let's look. I want to motivate you this morning with the thing that we should do when we encounter adversity. So let's look at Job. Job chapter 1. Let's put it up on the screen. There was once a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and he employed many servants. He was, in fact, the richest person in the entire area. Job had everything. He was not sinning. Now it tells us that again. He was a man of complete integrity and one of the richest persons in the entire area. So this fascinates me that we choose this man to be our example for what we're about to see. Let's look at test number 1. Look down to verse 13 and 14 right in there. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting at the oldest brother's house, so they're having a little family gathering, a messenger arrived at Job's home with the news, your oxen were plowing with all the donkeys feeding beside them. And then verse 15, when the Sabaeans raided us, they stole all the animals and killed all the farmhands, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you. Now, I am the only one who escaped to tell you is going to get to be almost ridiculously funny here in just a minute. But so the Sabaeans come in and raid and steal all of his animals, the oxen and donkeys, and lots of money tied up in those things back then. Look at verse number 16. While he was still speaking, now while this first guy is still talking, giving him the bad news, check this out. Another messenger arrives with this news. The fire of God has fallen from the heavens and burned up your sheep and all the shepherds. And what does it say? And I am the only one who escaped to tell you. Okay, so now there's 2 people standing there that are the only ones who have escaped from these horrible things that are happening to Job. Look at verse 17. While that man was still speaking, a third messenger arrives with the news, 3 bands of Chaldean raiders have stolen your camels and killed all your servants. And what does he say? And I am the only one who escaped to tell you. Oh yeah? Are you starting to feel that Job would say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. Something is wrong with this picture, right? Well, you think so? Keep looking. Look in verse 18. While that man was still speaking, or while he was still speaking, another messenger arrives with this news. Your sons and daughters were feasting in their oldest brother's home. Now, we just saw that. Suddenly, a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness and hit the house on all sides. Now, it didn't just blow in from the west. It didn't just blow in from the east. It blew in from all sides. And the house has collapsed, and all of your children are dead. And what does he say? I mean, it's not funny that his children were dead, but what does the servant say? Look at it. And I am the only one who escaped to tell you. Now, at this point, you think Job would lose his mind. You think that he would just fall apart. I mean, one servant after another has come in, one after another saying, dude, this is bad, but I got to tell you, and I'm the only one that lived. Apparently, these people lived in order to come tell, I believe. Look one more verse down, and let's see what Job does. Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head. Now, back then, it's not as easy as it is now. He shaved his head and fell to the ground. And let's get the verse out of the way just for a minute, because I want to be looking right at you. To worship. He tore his clothes, he shaved his head, and he fell to the ground to worship. Now, here's the premise I want to share with you this morning. He says out loud to the Lord, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I'll be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. And it says in the very next verse, in verse 22, look at that. In all of this, Job did not sin by blaming God.